It's Shaggy, and welcome to it. It is the live show. Hang on, let me get all my controls set. Hey, it's the live show here at 5 o'clock on KAKU. Not only are you listening to us on 88.5 FM, but you are watching us live on television at Channel 55. Today's guest is going to be somebody that's going to be kind of funny, kind of serious, but really kind of interesting, and you'll want to stick around for this one. As we always start the show, roll the intro.
Live from beautiful downtown Kahului, on the #1 island destination on planet Earth, the Valley Isle, Maui. From the KAKU studio at Halfway to Hell Plaza, it's live! And now, a man that's known far, but not wide. It's Shaggy!
Studio today on live is a guy that's done a lot. And I mean a lot with his life, and we'll just dive into as much as possible. Please welcome local comedian and aspiring actor in several other different genres of entertainment, Chino LaForge.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Oh,
Thank you for having me. There we go. Got levels up. There we go.
I know, right? I was
Thanks
like,
for having me, guys.
yeah, this was supposed to be a professional show, and then within like the first minute of it,
Well, I mean, it can only go uphill from here, really. I mean, just we're in the heart of Kahului.
oh, definitely, man. Well, let's hang on a sec. Let's bump this microphone because we have a problem with your audio
Oh
cable.
no! Check 1 2. Check. Is that better?
Yeah, there we go.
It's because I have such a rich baritone. It's really a problem. Like, we need to turn all the lows down and bring in all the middle-aged women because that voice really.
I do have to start off with just one simple question. With a voice like yours, why didn't you go into voiceover acting?
Well, it's still early. Luckily, I still have some time to do that. I do have a lot of improv characters that I've used over the years with many different voices, but I guess only time will tell on that. Yeah, I'm just waiting for the right job, really.
Well, and they always say that, like, especially with guys like you, you'll start in comedy, but after a while you start to crave more dimension to the character. Have you found yourself, like, already experiencing that, or are you still happy?
Well, actually, I kind of went with the reverse engineering element of it. I actually started as an actor and then moved into comedy eventually. So the characters are always going to be there. That's the thing, is when you're an actor, you've already kind of just accepted your insanity. So just knowing that about myself, I'm always constantly creating these new characters that are popping up, and I'll use them in stand-ups, but for the most part, I do hold on to them for any time we do film shoots with any ideas or any improv shows that we do, and they normally kind of resurface and come back to life.
Oh, but like with what I've done is, like, sometimes I like to, like, just leave and go do something serious, because every so often being silly is great, but after a while you're like, God, I feel like I want to do more. But for you started off in acting. How did you go from being in acting, which is a completely different mindset, to saying, yeah, you know what, I want to stand in front of a room of strangers and see if I can get a laugh?
Well, it all kind of started through typecasting. I mean, originally as an actor, I tried to be dramatic. I tried to be really heavy or angry or whatever my character kind of needed, and realized that people responded best to me when I was being comedic, because I'm such a large body and I'm kind of slapsticky. I'm a pretty silly dude. So, I mean, it just kind of, life kind of guided me into comedy, and now it's kind of hard to get out of that typecast. Everything I get hired for is comedy, which is fine. I mean, I laugh all day, every day, but yeah, it's definitely taking an interesting turn of direction where my typecast has now been filed into a completely different genre, and it's kind of cool. Yeah.
And when we talk about typecasting, I mean, this is something that's, like, really a big deal for actors, because as an actor, you want to have as much range as possible, because that means you can get as many jobs as possible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But see, the thing is that everybody fits a typecast, whether they know it or not. And most of the time, it's not who you really are. That's the really strange thing, and that's what makes acting a job, is the fact that you'll get lumped into typecasting constantly, and it's never really close to who you are as a true human. It's just kind of who you look like, really. Like, who can this person stereotypically play? And, like, because of my size, at least for a lot of television roles and such, they'll look at me and they'll be like, gang member number 1, or bouncer number 2, or security guard number 1. Like, that's my usual typecast. But through comedy, I've actually been able to alter the way people see me, simply because I've just become familiar with a different genre. It's very, very interesting process with the whole casting and element and such.
When did this typecasting start? Because, I mean, I have this example that I'm going to bring up in a sec, but just real quick, when did the typecasting start?
For myself or just in
for
the
you.
business? Well, it started the second I started doing acting classes, and I was about 10 years old, 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And
Just as tall as you are now.
Yeah, pretty much. Still able to dunk on the rest of the middle schoolers. No, I sat down with an acting coach, and they told me my typecast. And I kind of looked like a dog that had heard a foreign sound. Like, what do you mean typecast?
Wow.
And found out that there was a much more grittier side to Hollywood, in the fact that you fit a class, and if you want to break out of that, you have to break ground in that class. It's very strange. It's
weird.
Yeah, because the people who pick those jobs are normally so trained to pick on certain elements of you that would fit their film, that would read the best, and that's just their job. And it's kind of, you got to kind of take it with a little bit less heart and a little bit more understanding, just because it can be a little insulting sometimes. I mean, at times when I was heavier, I played like the token fat guy, or I've played, Hispanic roles, even though I'm not Hispanic at all, just because I fit like a type of look. Yeah.
Wow. And when you're told that you have this typecast, what did it do to you? I mean, because you say it's hurtful and all, but I mean, at the end of the day, this is your job. You should be able to go, whatever. I'm a gangster number one again.
Right. Well, it takes developing thick skin to get to that point. Like when I was younger, it definitely kind of it made me feel like someone was telling me what my limit was. Like, this is what you are to us. It kind of like boiled down my asset to like a concentrate. This is all that it is. And it felt like a bit of a death sentence, to be honest, because when I was first typecasted, I didn't really like the typecast I fit. I'm not really your generic type of Hollywood handsome, and I have my own look. And it did feel like a glass ceiling at a little bit at a certain point. But through acting, you kind of realize that there are a lot of bad actors out there.
Oh, God.
And if you can separate yourself in a typecast as a good actor, it kind of gives you a little bit more elevation. I mean, don't look to me for that. I'm still not anything relevant or reputable. But, it's just a matter of climbing the ranks, paying your dues, and just being patient and realizing that, the business doesn't really owe you anything.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of, you got to pay to play type of thing.
What age were you when you realized that because, I mean, as kids, and you're going into something like acting or something, the world is so optimistic. The sky is the limit. And then you're just slammed with this, oh, no, this is all that you'll ever be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean, at the end of the day, like, did you just ever really look back at your childhood at where you are now and just go, God, why didn't I go another round?
Yeah, there are times where I have definitely learned lessons from situations where if I had known those lessons before, I would have definitely gone about it differently. But without those moments, I mean, it's really hard to say what you would know today. You know what I mean? Like, I was a long time ago, I was casted in Romeo and Juliet as Romeo, and I decided to turn down the part because I wanted Tybalt. And the reason I wanted Tybalt, what I thought, is because I could do the best job as Tybalt versus Romeo. But what it really was kind of the brainwashing of typecasting. I was told to be the angry, bouncer-like, security-like, thug-like type of person for so long that I felt comfortable being Tybalt because he was more of a aggressive, in-your-face, confrontational character. And I didn't realize it till years later, where I was like, wow, I typecasted myself after being told for so long what typecast I fit.
Nice.
Yeah, so it adds some layers where you got to kind of be really perceptive to what you're putting out there. Otherwise, you kind of do get stuck in a typecast for sure.
And I would figure, like, the day that you're going, oh my God, I'm putting myself right back where I don't want to be. That's got to be a day that you just kind of like, I'm calling into work. I'm taking it off. I need some thinking time.
Well, defining where you want to be, that's another interesting thing. If you're on set, you should be where you want to be, period. There's no such thing as small parts, only small actors. A lot of actors will say that. But it really is true. If you're on set, you're where you want to be. If you got casted, you have no reason to complain. There's hundreds of other people that normally applied for that job that really wanted that spot and would have given even your small role, as you may see it, a lot more individual attention because they would have had more heart. So it's really a business of just having the heart to dig into whatever it is that you have to do. It's really a job.
Well, speaking of having heart, though, and this is what I wanted to bring up because, see, not too long ago when I was still doing comedy and I got to meet you for the first time, you
Yes,
brought
back when you were fatter, I was thinner, and we both had more hair.
I might have actually been taller then too. But back then, you brought up this project that you were working on. It was a pilot episode for a children's
Yes.
show, and you played a gecko.
A gecko, yes.
Now, tell me, how do you go from typecasting yourself into these tough, masculine, gangster, almost enforcer roles to wanting to be a happy-go-lucky gecko on a children's show?
About 2.5 hours of makeup and 6 hours of dance choreography. That's how.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty much. No, I love children. I mean, I know I get typecasted a lot as like kind of bigger, badder roles, but I'm really just a big sweetheart. So when it came to working with kids, it to be honest, it felt more natural jumping into that skin, so to speak, versus jumping into the skin of somebody more hateful and more aggressive. It actually felt a little bit more soothing. Yeah.
Well, what was your character like on this show? And what was the name of it? Because it's been years and my recollection, with my hair has gone.
Well, it was called The Peekaboos. It starred Willie K as Uncle Willie, and had like Cindy Mayo Davis. Oh God, so many talented people were involved in that. It's so hard to remember everyone involved. It's been a while too. We've been about 4 or 5 years. But yeah, apparently it got passed around the school system as well. So there's a couple of children who've seen it out there, or a couple of casting directors that are now not going to hire me.
You don't think anybody's ever going to walk up on the street and be like, "You play an impeccable gecko."
You're so reptilian. But no, it was really easy jumping into that character because he was the slapstick humor, like fall on a pie type of stuff. At the same time, he was just like the most earnest of the three. Like there's 3 animal characters, and like the bird kind of had more of like a chip on his shoulder, like a little bit more like
a little bit attitude.
Yeah, and then the other animal had more. The mongoose had more of like a playful, like cool nature, and then the gecko was the nerdy, slapsticky, fall on your face. And it was just fun. It was nerdy, and it was really genuine, and that it's very rare that you get to play a part that's like that.
Yeah, and the funny thing about that part is because it was soon after that you had tried that pilot that you started earnestly going after stand-up comedy and doing things like Brian Evans and opening up for William Shatner and things like that. Do you think that role actually tipped the needle to you saying a little bit more that, hey, maybe I don't want to be typecast as this tough guy. Maybe I kind of want to go into this fun direction.
Yeah, it definitely gave me more confidence in moving forward, where I was like, I'm not just seen as one type of casting, even though certain casting directors may feel so, especially when it comes to like big Hollywood projects and stuff like that, that within my community, I'm still seen as different elements. And that's nice because that means that when I do work within my community, I have that type of freedom. And that's where a lot of my work ends up going, is back into the community, because it's the one that reciprocates the most just genuine positive energy to it, But I mean, at a certain point, every performer chooses whether they're going to perform for passions or pennies, and I chose passions. So when it comes to that, I kind of rather generate the positive energy into the system that perpetuates it, But yeah, it definitely gave me more confidence to reach outside of my box, my realm of what I knew. And yeah, I to say that they were correlated, it's kind of hard to establish whether A caused B or vice versa. But it definitely was a culmination of a lot of work happening at once, where I was like, you know what, I can do this. I can go outside my means. I can't step outside my comfort zone. And I feel like that's what really helped with skyrocketing the comedy, is stepping out of that comfort.
I got to ask about that comfort zone, though, because up until this point, you have done some acting in school. You have done, actually been trying to get professional gigs and things like that, and that is a whole production.
Oh, yeah.
But then you're going into where there is this whole system of things set up around being an actor, to where, as a stand-up comedian, you are the entire system. You are your own agent, you're your own booking guy, you're your own promoter. I mean, you'd have to do everything at the end of the day. Which part of making the transition from acting into comedy was the hardest? The learning the new routines and the new roles that you had to play, or the actual getting comfortable enough to step out on that stage and try something new?
Well, what it really is just the patience. What was really hard to develop was the patience of pumping the brakes and realizing you're not going to be a star overnight. You're not going to be doing really amazing things on stage in your local area, and then a year later film your stand-up Comedy Central special. It doesn't work like that. The people you see on the specials have normally been performing for at least 10 years, or they have a friend in the business, which I don't have.
Yeah, you know.
I have a couple, but not enough that are going to give me a show like that. But yeah, it's a vigorous testing process. I mean, a lot of people don't know Daniel Tosh is 42.
Yeah, I know, right?
You know, it took him about 15 years in comedy to get to where he is now. He worked hard for it. You know, other comedians follow those ranks as well. I mean, Dave Chappelle was writing for years before you even saw his face. You know, it's just a matter of being patient and realizing that every time you drop a dime in the well, 10 dimes is $1. You know, 100.
You're building up that account.
Yeah.
Well, how much of an account? I mean, because it's not just when you made the jump alone. You made the jump into stand-up comedy, and around the same time, there was a community of comedians coming up, and all of you guys got together and started writing and collaborating. I got to imagine for you, it was kind of, maybe I'm wrong here, but was it more of the same lessons that you took from acting that inspired this, or just more of a sense of, you know, now that I'm doing this, I'm going to have that attitude of let's go full tilt, let's develop relationships and networks?
Right. Well, actually, the comedy scene kind of all happened a little bit by accident. I mean, I didn't intend for there to be a comedy scene, but when I first imagined it, I never thought that I'd be booking shows and hiring comedians and managing talent and dealing with producers and being the producer and doing all these things. I actually have Tin Can to thank a lot for bringing a community of comedians together, because at the time before Tin Can, I was just doing open mics at bars that didn't want to hear comedy, they wanted to hear music, and I was fighting audiences until I was getting attention. And then when Tin Can came along, it opened the door for comedic audiences where people were ready to hear comedy. And it really was a tide turner. And when people saw that I had chops already from performing for years in terrible open mics, or at least terrible for comedy, they saw that, wow, this kid really has chops. He knows how to deal with hecklers. He has material. Like I feel like I was the first comedian in that group that really had presentable material with the chops to kind of be ready to improv and back it up. And it kind of brought other comedians in.
And it seems like that seems to be the correlation, too. It's because once you started putting yourself out there, and then I hearken back to the time that you opened up for, like, Roseanne, William Shatner, and things like that, a lot of other guys looked at you and said, I think I can do this, too. But at the end of the day, I mean, honestly, we know that some of them don't have it. For you, though, how do you go from this role of where it was you as the maverick all by yourself to now there's a community of people, and you guys kind of all just feed off of each other, and there's energy involved, and you know, you support each other at shows, but sometimes there's those that's like
yeah, I mean, it's called open mic for a reason, first of all.
Yeah,
you know, it's not selective mic. You have to let even the people you wish not to perform. But you know, it's really interesting because I noticed in the mainland a lot of comedians will become threatened by people who think that they can. They're like, I can do this. I see you do it, and I could do it. And they feel threatened. They almost take it as a slight. But for me, you know, it's hard to really say that anybody really works harder at comedy on Maui. I'm constantly committed to it, continually working, tireless efforts, always on the grind. And I feel like, yeah, and just about anybody could do comedy if they were willing to put the blood hours that it takes.
Yeah, and that's something else too. And when you come from a background of acting, you're used to preparation and rehearsing and preparation and re-rehearsing and redoing the lines and rewriting. This process is more innate to you than it seems other Maui-based comedians.
It would seem that way, but actually a lot of my set, the only part that's written are the punchlines. And everything else, like the setups, the guiding, everything going into the jokes, that's all just made up on the spot, and it varies every night. Like if anybody who's been a repeat audience member has come to the shows, they'll notice that sometimes I do tell the same jokes, but it's never told the same way, and there's always new punchlines to it. Just because I know with a local audience, they've seen the show, and the last thing I want to do is disappoint. If you show up to see comedy, you're going to laugh. That's our goal. It's my goal. Yeah.
Well, coming from the first open mics, though, I mean, it's got to be kind of rewarding at the end of the day to go, oh dear God, they're not throwing beer bottles at me anymore.
It is rewarding, but at the same time, it just it gives me. It's like climbing a mountain, you know. It's just putting the next peg, climbing to the next spot where you can dig the next peg, and eventually you hit a spot where you can take a break. And I'm still not there yet, you know. I'm working tirelessly still, but yes, I do try to make sure that I take time to look around and enjoy the scenery from each height that I reach.
Yeah.
It's important, yeah.
Well, when you're mountain climbing too, we all know that sometimes the peg just hits empty dirt and you're back down a couple feet. Have you ever had any of those moments?
Constantly. Oh yeah. The only difference between success and failure is getting up one more time than you fail. It's pretty much broken down to just a matter of how resilient can you be in the face of that type of adversity. I mean, people will constantly tell you in the beginning of your career that, you know, this is a false dream and what you're chasing is ridiculous, and, you know, only 1% of the people who perform comedy ever make it, which is true. I mean, actually it's less than 1%. But when you make it to the next realm, people are like, oh, well, you know, you made it as a local comedian, but I mean, you still haven't been to the mainland and still haven't competed with them. And then when you do that, people are like, well, you're still not on TV. And it's just this endless list of other people's projections of success. You know, eventually if you're going to be on TV, then be like, oh, we don't drive a Rolls Royce, or, you know, and it's I feel like it's a conditioning of kind of the media of things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people want to see success as object things, when really it's, as an artist, it's self-fulfillment. I mean, I feel more fulfilled now than I did before, and I know that my career is going to offer me continual enlightenment in that feeling, as long as I stay true to my art and true to myself and don't really make the transition from passion to pennies. I know I said that earlier, but...
Yeah, I know. And guys don't understand that when you are performing from a place of passion, it is more of an authentic thing. But at the same time, you know this. As a comedian, you're telling the stories that you want people to laugh at, that you secretly go home and cry about. You know?
Have cried about.
I mean, turning your bad life experiences into fodder for other people's laughing, does it ever become emotionally taxing to you?
If anything, it's actually helped with him. It's become a type of therapy almost, which is a little scary now that I can only feel like I got it off my chest when I talk to a room full of people about it. But yeah, no, it's... most of the jokes do come from a place of pain. That's very true, and a lot of people will say that comedians are very depressed people.
Mm-hmm.
But I normally wait till I've processed the feelings to a point where I understand what's behind all that, and then from there I can tell the joke from the perspective of not understanding, and then have the third dimension of understanding, where it's like me with the people around me in that situation, and the third dimension is me now commentating on how I felt about those people then. And it really actually adds an extra level of diversity to it. So it's very weird and like math of comedy. But yeah, there are times I definitely feel a little downtrodden by some of the things I say. I feel like some of my jokes that get big laughs in certain audiences are the ones that I prefer not to really tell as often, because I don't feel as much commitment to them. But I have to remember it's not about me. You know, if I'm going on stage to entertain a room full of people, not to play with myself in front of a room full of people.
No, we actually know other comedians that do that.
It's quite a show.
Yeah, it actually is. But, you know, when you talk about being in front of people and sharing in that moment, I mean, when the lights go down, the set's done, and you go home at the end of the night, has there ever been a time where you're just like really processing a show and going, God, that wasn't the show I wanted?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my. That was the first 5 years of my career you just named. Like, the first 5 years of doing stand-up comedy is just a constant guesswork of what's going to work, what's not. And then you go home to the drawing board and you're like, why didn't this work? This joke has been funny for me for so long. Or I thought this joke was so funny. Why hasn't anybody laughed at the past 4 times I've told it? Mm-hmm. And it's in the honesty. You have to read the audience. You have to listen to what they respond to. And you have to be self-critical and humble enough to cut the jokes that you like, even if, or cut the jokes that the audience doesn't like, even if it's ones that you're committed to. It's a process we call killing your children, because that's what it feels like.
Really?
Yeah. It's a very deep part of comedy where we have jokes that we write that we think are brilliant. And sometimes, to the credit of the comedian, they are. But because of maybe the level of thought in the room, or the lack of relevancy of it, or just a lack of meat, it still needs more. audience doesn't respond, and you have to put that joke on the back burner as much as it hurts, and you have to really craft it. I have jokes that I don't tell, that I'm waiting for that extra little piece to come in so I can finally tell that joke. Or sometimes somebody will heckle me and it comes up and I use it and it's amazing, but it's only amazing in that moment. And it's kind of hard to not want more for it, but you just got to kind of take it for what it is and just be happy you have that bullet in your back pocket if you need it.
Well, you go from open mics and rough bars. I'd imagine that when it comes to hecklers, you have a lot of bullets.
Oh yeah. Call me Van Helsing. I'll take them all down, man.
The amazing thing is you're one of the few comedians that I've actually met that when a heckler comes up in the room, you embrace it. And I've always thought that I need a clever way to ask this, because with some people on stage, they love a heckler to come up because it's secretly what they feel about their own performance. Have you ever had somebody heckle you and you're thinking in your head, you're right, but thank God you opened your mouth?
There has been times, but at the same time, the honesty of the performance is agreeing with them. If I agree with them, I'll verbally be like, you're right, that joke sucked. What do you have? Let's hear what jokes you have, and let them hear and then rip apart their joke, and then all of a sudden it becomes funny because you're playing, and hecklers are such a weird line of work because we're the only type of performance art that people will interrupt to give their opinion. You'll never hear someone interrupt a Willie K show with a comment and stop Willie K to play something different. You'll never see a theater show where somebody's like, I didn't like that line, change that line. And the actors adapt to it. Comedy's the only real performance art where people will stop you, and it's your job to stop them from stopping you. And it becomes this like tug of war, where it really is just based on the resilience of the audience member.
Have you ever pushed an audience too far with a heckler?
I don't know if this is too far. This is actually one of my favorite stories. I want to make sure you have time for this one.
I got like 3 minutes.
Okay. This is a great story. I was in Washington, and this really good-looking couple sat third row, dead center. Light was on them. I could see them clearer than I could see the rest of the audience, because that's normally the case. And I'm telling my jokes, and the guy interrupts me. And I go, all right, guy, I'm a pretty happy guy, so I'll let this go for you. If you don't talk anymore, we'll pretend like this never happened. But if you talk again, I'm going to ruin your night and possibly your life. And he gets quiet, and he throws up a middle finger at me. And he drops an F-bomb followed by a U. He predicates it to me, so it's directed at me. So then audience is triggered. Everyone's like, ooh. So all of a sudden the audience is kind of, the energy's blended. So I'm like kind of looking around like, all right, let me get a good look at you. I'm looking at him like, you're good looking. You have a good looking girlfriend. You're beautiful. You obviously have a nice job. You got money. Oh, I get it. You're cheating on her. Room gets silent. And I'm like, no, seriously, check his phone. Check his Facebook. And he like gets quiet, and she like reaches for his phone, and he hands her the phone. She goes, what's the password? And he slowly grabs the phone and puts it back in his pocket and tries to pretend like it never happened. At this point, audience is like, check his phone. Yeah, give her the password. Like, everyone's on my side at this point. And things erupt. She dumps a drink on his lap and walks out, and everybody's losing it. And I look at him like, you see, buddy, you ruined my show. I ruined your life. Now, who wants to hear some jokes? Like, but at that point, the audience was unreachable. They're like, yeah, do him next. Like, it became like a blood sport feel that I try to avoid at a comedy show.
And that's what people don't understand, is it is like doing gladiator battle at times.
Oh yeah. And as a trained comedian, it feels like, yes, it is a gladiator battle, but you are the champion that has been in the gladiator battle for years and years and years. Scars to prove it. Everyone's afraid of, versus the nobodies who have to fight for their life. And I mean, come on, you give somebody the improper weapons without any armor, make quick work of them.
Definitely. Oh God. Well, okay. Now, real quick before we get to the break, I want to right when we come back, I want to kind of talk about things that you're doing outside of comedy now.
Sure.
Some of the, well, there's a lot, so we'll get into that in just a sec. Plus, about the birth of your comedy company, Power Up, how that came to be, and some of the players involved. Okay, we'll get into all of that in just a sec.
Love to hand out some of that credit. They deserve it.
Definitely. All right, well, for you joining us at home, if you'd like to join the show, 877-6363, you can call up. We have a phone line right behind me, and it works. Yay. Hey. You can also email any of your questions to live@akaku.org. Today on the board, we have Kristen, who is volunteering from Queen Liliuokalani Children's Center. Hey, I got it correct.
Nice. Well done.
Yeah. Oh, so she's running the show tonight, and she'll get your emails if you want to send them live at KAKU. All right. We'll take a short break, come back, and talk more with Chino LaForge, a local actor, local comedian, and kind of loco if you think about it.
A bit.
a bit. You're listening to KAKU 88.5 FM and watching live on KAKU Channel 55. We'll be right back.
Did you know? These 6 major corporations control 90% of the media in North America. KAKU is public access TV, run by the people, for the people. KAKU is Maui County's agent of free speech and community media. Federal laws require cable companies to provide financial support for all public access programming. KAKU is your public access resource, and we're open 5 days a week. Community members can learn to use the equipment and tools needed to exercise their free speech. It's easy, too. Now you know.
At KAKU's Maui Community Television, we are committed to employing your access to media. Our goal is to certify community producers that will go out and create meaningful and local content for our viewing community. KAKU's Media Lab now offers classes in Apple Final Cut Pro 10, professional editing software. This class will cover basic editing skills and Final Cut Pro's 10 systems available at KAKU. With a maximum of 8 students to every instructor and 1 student per editing system, students will receive intimate and hands-on training.
Are back. Welcome to the show. If you missed it, we've been talking to local comedian, actor, and just all-around tall guy, Chino LaForge.
I didn't choose that last one, Shaggy.
I gotta imagine though, because for me, when I'm on stage, I'm always picked on about my size. First it was I'm short and fat, and then after I lost all the weight, now you're just short. Nobody ever picked up the fact that I was ugly, which was kind of an advantage for me. But being a guy your size on stage, I gotta imagine that you don't get picked on as much as I would.
Picked on for being short? No. That happens rarely when basketball players vacation to Maui. But no, I mean, everybody will find something. Children are so mean, and drunk people become children. So it's kind of like
like that, isn't it?
Yeah, where it's like, you have a gross beard, or your eyes are close together, like, your ears are big. What happened there? Like,
you eat boogers.
Yeah, right. It's like, oh, got me. But no, it's really just thick skin. The industry gives you thick skin after a while, where it's like I've had agents telling me what's wrong with me. What are you gonna say?
No, right? It's like I've already been told. I'm
you need to lose some weight. Yeah, I heard you. Shit, shoot, that's bad.
Yeah, the funny thing that strikes me though is when you are standing up on stage, you are very aware of yourself. Has there ever been a moment, like in your routines, where you become so aware of yourself that at that point the show in your mind is over?
No, I've fought that off before. I call that the fear. Every comedian experiences the fear sometime in their career that makes them want to check out on stage halfway through your show. You want to be done, but you can't. Luckily as an actor, I've realized the show must go on. The show needs to complete. You need to finish the show. I've finished a show with broken fingers that I've broken, like a choreographed stage fight that's happened before. I've bled during a scene and just had to work through it. So when it comes to comedy, it just really reminds you that you have to finish the show. Nobody paid there to see a half show. It doesn't matter how scared you are. It's not about you. Once again, they paid good money to see this show, and you're going to give it to them, whether they like or whether they dislike the entire hour or not. You're doing it, and that's what you're there for.
And especially in light of like what we will call comedic meltdowns, like Michael Richardson, Dave Chappelle, who famously has melted down,
Of course,
several dozen times on stage. Have you ever had an on-stage meltdown?
I don't think I've ever had the pressure to. I've performed in front of some big names and opened for them, but I've never been that big name. I have locally, but never on a national scale where thousands of people are coming to see you. That's a whole another level of pressure cooker. And to say that I am not susceptible to that would be a total shot in the dark. I have no idea. I could have that potential of that happening eventually, but until then, I kind of just take the stage one show at a time. I realize every time I show up that we're in a really unique art where people want to see you succeed. In music, you'll get a lot of musician haters, or in theater, you'll get a lot of snobs. They're like, "No, well, this is more of an avant-garde play." But with comedy, you get a big room full of people like, "I hope he's funny. I really hope they're funny," and that is so empowering as a performer because you feel that energy. You feel people looking at you like, "Please be funny," and like, I almost want to wear a shirt that says, "Don't worry. Relax, I'm very funny." Like, kind of co-set it, but
put them at ease.
Yeah. But it's exhilarating. It's that expectation that makes most trained performers rise above that.
Well, now that we've talked about awareness of self on stage, this is something that you've just brought up that is very important. That people that do not do this do not realize. When you're on stage, when you're in front of a room of strangers, or even a room full of half friends and maybe a couple of other acquaintances, it doesn't matter, the audience. Their energy directly translates to how you walk out on that stage. Have you ever had a night where you're just like, "Okay, audience, I know it's late, it's time."
Oh, you mean walked out to a slaughterhouse?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially in LA, all the time. Yeah, I mean, nobody does you any favors in this business. I mean, the only time I've really gotten prime sets are the shows that I've put together.
and nobody understands. You have to get to the level that you put on your own shows so that you finally get the spot that you want.
Yeah, and then eventually somebody will pay you to do their shows, and it never goes the way you want it to. It's kind of, it's a really backwards type of thing. But I've come out to dead crowds millions of times. But one of the funnest things in stand-up comedy is turning a room. There's no better way to prove to yourself that you're in the right business than to go out completely cold to a room that just heard a bunch of jokes that offended them. Like say a comedian just talked about something vicious, or the R word. I'm not going to say it, but because it's live and I don't want all those calls to come in.
Yeah.
But there's certain things that can really shut down an audience, and to go out to a shut down audience and to reopen that comfort zone and then surpass that again. That is a true testament to comedic talent. You
ever find yourself addicted to the challenge of changing a room?
I'm addicted to challenge, period. So, I mean, challenge of changing a room, yeah, sure, awesome. Challenge of performing at a venue I've never been at, cool, that's just as good. Performing in front of an entirely deaf audience, yeah, I could do that, sure. Actually, I understand sign language fluently, we're good.
The funny thing is this show is probably better broadcast in front of blind people. So.
Well, I've been told I have a face for radio, so.
Welcome to it. Oh, well, when we talk about like room energies and being able to change the rooms and stuff, I just want a brief recollection from you. What is the worst room that you've ever had to walk into?
I hope they don't get mad at me saying this, but the Life's a Beach open mic of 2008, 2007, 2008.
Really?
The room was fine. It was great for music, but the audience definitely did not want to hear comedy. And I found myself night in, night out just fighting for chuckles. And it was the beginning of my career, too, so it was the most sensitive time for a comedian, because a lot of times comedians in the first 6 months, if they're not getting laughs, they're done. And that's just not the process. You're going to win, you're going to lose, and in the first year, you're going to lose more than you win.
God.
It sucks.
Yeah.
And it sucks to do that in front of a room full of people each time. And Life's a Beach was kind of that place for me. But ever since then, I feel like the sharpest swords are forged in the hottest of fires, Ever since then, anytime I went to an open mic at Life's a Beach, just went on stage and just killed it. And now, that's a really comfortable room for me because of the fact that that's where I was really made, was in that room. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of become a duality.
Would you say that fear has shaped some of your performance, like how you approach the art of performing?
Fear. That is an interesting word, because I feel like fear is intimidation laced with a lack of self-confidence. Like that's where fear happens. I've definitely feel like intimidation has fueled the larger part of my career, but I feel like giving into fear is a bit of a lesser emotion. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have experienced that type of fear, and there's been times where I've shied away from it. But after enough conflict with enough intimidation, and just you eventually realize it's just tenacity. Like the success is just being tenacious and continually attacking the brick wall that you feel would never break, and eventually it does.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just fear. Fear is a word that makes you stop working, and I fear the word fear.
Well, and I bring it up at a really good time, because talking about being unafraid, here you've done stand-up comedy and you've done it well, but you're still branching off. As a matter of fact, you're now doing radio shows.
Yes.
Huh. So go ahead, give a quick plug.
Can I give a pitch?
Yeah,
okay,
go for it.
I didn't want to offend anybody.
Are you kidding me?
I'm on 94.3, that's 94X, every Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm half of MC in the morning. I'm the C part of the equation, stands for Chino. The other DJ is known as M.
And how is it doing? Because stage is one thing. Stage, you have energy to feed off of and everything. But when you're in a radio studio, it's you and one other person creating chemistry with bare walls.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange. You know, I'm so used to saying something funny and then waiting for a reaction. That never comes in radio. You know, there's no laugh track. We don't even have a background bed when we talk. It's old school pen and paper radio that we do, because the person that runs the station is, John is he likes the original style radio. He likes the grippingness of just the old school, of where you don't have any distractions. It's all right in front of you, which is a really fun way to do it. And yeah, I've definitely noticed a couple of different nuances where I now have to analyze what I'm doing and be more conscious and tell my jokes, but at the same time be prepared to rapid fire and go to the next segment. So the person in the car, when they're headed or wherever, is laughing, and I'm still moving the pace, or we're still moving the pace of the show. Yeah, and even like now my co-host has to stop laughing as much because he's been helping me out with the laughter in between, the punchlines, but now I have to kind of pick up my pace, and it's all a learning experience. I'm just trying to get better at it, just like anybody else.
Yeah. And see, that's the funny thing. It's like we went from acting in the beginning, then you went out on stage, now you're doing radio. I got to ask, when are you going to start doing an internet-only show, a podcast video series?
I love the live element of it. So a podcast kind of, it worries me a bit, because I don't want people to gain a certain expectation and then come to see a live show and be offset, like, wait a minute, I thought you did this, and this is, because it is a different medium. I'm sure it will happen eventually, but right now I kind of want to focus my energies into channeling the live performance, because that's where my real heart is. Everything else, like radio and acting, acting is also, it's hard to say. I mean, that's one of my
like your
original
first love.
passions too. Yeah. I also play music too, so I mean, there's that as well. But with radio, I kind of realized my place is just, I'm paying my dues, I'm learning, I'm new. I don't know anything about the business. I never went to broadcasting school, or I never got my degree in broadcasting or anything. I'm as green as you can be. And in realizing that, I'm just kind of open to the experiences and waiting till I bring up my chops. And maybe when I become more familiar with the way radio works and broadcasting and how to talk to my audience properly through that medium, I'm going to wait till that product is ready to produce.
Okay.
Yeah, until I'm at a level ready for that.
Now, see, this is interesting because, here it is. We've talked all this whole time about establishing, like, where you are in life. And even at this point, you're still trying something new. You're reaching into radio, which is something that you've never done before. Which one of these multiple facets of your career right now would you say is the one that is your joy?
Well, I'm not working a normal job anymore, so all of it.
Yes.
It used to be where, like, comedy was my therapy, acting was my my stepping stool tools, where I was trying to just get better, and radio was kind of just to get the comedy out there. But now it's just because I no longer work a normal 9-to-5 job. I've actually committed myself completely to performing. which financially is the worst idea I could have had, but spiritually I feel amazing. But ever since I've made that transition, I don't feel that type of burden of pressure because of having a fourth element of a job in there where I'm like, I got to go to work today. I got to find time to make a nap because I perform tomorrow, and I got to make sure I get enough sleep. And I don't have to juggle that anymore. Now it's just like I got to focus on giving my all every time I'm in a position where people are hearing it or seeing it or being a part of it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just having that on-off switch now is what I really have to.
Is it ever hard? Is it ever hard hitting that switch?
It can be. It can be. I just I do my best, maybe caffeinate myself a little bit, or if that's not working, I really just start talking to my audience, and that really kind of gives me energy back. I kind of there's times where I perform stand-up where I was tired, and I use the opening 5 minutes to just kind of warm up with the audience and bring them up, bring myself at their level or bring them up to my level, whichever one I need to do, and just play with that. Because once you're in that mode, you're in that element, and you have all that endorphin running, you're just on. And once you have the confidence to know that whenever you're on, you're good, I mean, that just kind of eliminates that worry. So even on slow nights, I feel like I've finally reached a point in comedy where on my bad nights, most people are like, oh, he was funny. And that's a bad night for me. People are like, oh, he was funny. Like, really, when I'm on,
You're over the top.
I get great reviews and everyone's happy, and that's what I gun for. But on nights that I feel like I did a poor job, now it's finally just evolved to, he was funny. And I'll take that.
And people don't realize how hard it is to get to that stage where even on your worst nights, you still deliver.
I feel like there is a group of people that don't understand that, but there's also a large group of people, the ones who normally enjoy the comedy scene the most, that really do understand that. And with those audience members, you can tell they're affected most when you do have an amazing set, because they're just like, wow, that was just so inspiring. Like, I've always wanted to do comedy, but I never felt like I could. And watching you perform, it kind of makes me nervous, and it kind of makes me want to do this. And I mean, that's what the open mic's for. I put in, as you know, I've put in years and years and years in open mics before I even tried to give any type of polished product as a headliner to anyone. Like, it's been continuous labor nonstop for years and years before I was even ready to be like, here's my headliner set. I'm doing 45 minutes. It took me like 5 years to do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that those 5 years, you've probably had each and every one of those jokes in that show evolve about 5 million times.
There's a weird array of them, because like some of the first several jokes you're very committed to, and you write them and you tone them and you make them really good over several years. And some of them are just walk-on home run hitters where you're like, that joke was just, it just popped into my head and now it's amazing. It's one of the best in my set. And a lot of times those will rotate, where it's like, that was your best joke. Now this is your best joke. Now one of your original jokes is your best joke. And you got to kind of just go with the flow and kind of play with it. But yeah, I don't really know where I'm going with that.
It's okay. It's okay. I mean, doing one of these shows is different than doing stand-up comedy, because, at this point of the show, you've got everything planned up. It's like 47 minutes into your set. You're willing to tell somebody, all right, we're going to get ready to send this home. I'll come out from a ha-na-ho.
Yeah.
So it's okay if you're burned out a little.
I remember what I was going to say now. A lot of the jokes that you write, just because I had a 45-minute set doesn't mean that I had 45 minutes worth of jokes. That used to be 2.5 hours of jokes that got chicken noodle soup condensed down to 45 minutes.
Wow.
And that's what makes a solid 45-minute performance. And comedy's a lot of that.
Yeah, well, and I don't want to get too far before I bring this up, so I'm going to bring it up now.
Okay.
It's my show. I can do it. When we talk about groups of people, you also have a group of people that...
I sure do.
Yeah, that you have started... Well, actually, it's your company, Power Up Comedy. How did Power Up come along?
Well, it started once again at Tin Can Comedy, where myself, Sonny Dennis, Corky Gardner, Ted Anderson, Doug Wyckoff, and I think that's it for the original founding members, had all joined Power Up Comedy. We'd picked up a couple comedians along the way too. King Martin as well was involved. And then eventually, as we started, as Tin Can had fallen out of Mulligan's, and we kind of were trying to produce shows at other places because we didn't really have anything else. We started booking at like Ambrosia's and doing some small comedy nights there. And then we finally got the open mic established in Stella Blues. And when that happened, that was a huge turning point for us, because now we finally had something to rally around. And from there, I used the resources of Sonny Dennis, Ted Anderson, Doug Wyckoff, and Jason Strawn, as well as Teresa Sickles, to really build a business where people were handling the press or the graphic design or the photography or the video. And my job was just booking talent, engineering the show, getting butts in the seats, advertising, and then, of course, ultimately performing. So without the team, I couldn't have done it. Sonny Dennis, he's my right-hand man. That guy is just solid. He's extremely funny, well-rehearsed, and more importantly, just loyal to the scene and just so much heart. You know, it's very rare you see a performer that makes you check how much heart you have, and Sonny Dennis has been that for me. And then Ted Anderson has just this amazing live performance where he can pick apart any group of people and find out what's funny and insult them to their soul, but find some common denominator so that they take it as charm. You know, or Jason has this amazing way of working pauses where he can draw in a room, and then when he hits his punchline, it's super effective. Everybody's got these tools that are so different that without all of them, I don't think it would allow any of us to shine as bright as we can, because we really have comedy taste for everybody now because of just the group effort that we have. And I mean, the only thing I could really be credited for is being just the first of that group to really have things together when it came to performance and state the intention of let's do this, let's make a business. And all it took was a group of like-minded individuals who were just as committed to the ideal. And of course, a couple of them have fallen out, a couple of them have joined, and that style is going to repeat. I mean, that could even happen with my close core, and I understand that. I mean, if they have juicier things, please go by all means. You know, it's all about, it's a stepping stone. But it's really been just an amazing team with nothing but pure loyalty and a total surrendering of egos, where even especially I have to work on it harder than most, where I have to realize that, like, okay, yeah, certain people are telling me certain things about my performance and blah, 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 you're doing great, all this. The realness of it is everyone is doing great. I'm just the one who's doing a lot of the promoting for myself and stuff, and that I need to constantly be on my grind because these guys are all extremely talented, and we've all feed into that. So it's been a team that's done nothing but gotten better through working with each other and just loving what each other does.
It sounds like it's a team of also friendly.
Yes.
But competitive. You sound like, even with the people that are closest to you, and I've kind of noticed this from my own observations, each one of you, when you go out to do a show, you always try not only to top your last show, but to top each other as you go. Have you ever just relied on this feeling of one-upsmanship to make your shows and to take them to the next level?
Well, I mean, that's kind of the way you build your shows. That's how you normally order your talent, or that's a lot of times how you'll at least address your talent, is that you want it to kind of have that effect. What it really is that nobody wants to drop that ball. Once the host serves up that ball of energy, nobody wants it to hit the ground. And sometimes that means diving for it and getting it and digging it out of the dirt. But if you do, as you know, ball goes higher and everybody's panicking even harder because now the game just got more interesting. And that's kind of how it is for each set, where it's like nobody wants to drop the ball. So everybody's going to try to outdo the last, simply just to keep that ball in the air so that when the show ends, the ball's given to the audience and they get to go home with that lifted feeling. Like, that's the whole goal of it. And working with each other, I wouldn't say it gets competitive. It's just more of an understanding of, like, he just killed it, he's going to kill it, I better kill it, or I'm going to look really weird sandwiched between these two guys. It's more of like a lift up thing, yeah.
You become at that point very much aware of not only your role in the show, but other comedians in the show. And you do have comedians that come to you for advice and things like that. But let's say right now in this audience that we have somebody that maybe they're listening and they're thinking, you know, these guys, one of them can ask questions and another one is a funny guy. I think I can do that. And especially when it comes to you, I think I can do what Chino does, and I can go on stage and perform. What would you tell them if somebody right now listening was thinking of going down this path?
Do the slow turn to the camera. I would tell them to come to our open mic every Tuesday night at 3s. It starts at 9 o'clock. It's free. Watch the first one if you don't feel comfortable performing. Feel free to talk to myself or any one of the other comedians. We're all very helpful. I notice a lot of the scenes across the nation, even some of the scenes in Hawaii, are very self-driven, self-oriented, where they want only their people to succeed. It's not like that for us. We really want to just really feed into the local comedy scene. The only way we do that is by having more comedians. So please come to our open mic, see the show, see what it's all about. And if you think that you can do it, go get on our stage, try to prepare 5 minutes of material. Then after your set, feel free to come talk to one of us. And I don't give critique unless it's asked for. That's my number one rule when it comes to advice or critique. If you don't ask me for critique, I'll just say, hey, good job up there. You worked hard. Or good job. Just good job. If somebody really wants honest critique, I expect them to be like, hey, what did you really think of my set? But I treat honesty the same way I treat butt whippings. If you ask me for it, you're going to have to get it. I'm going to have to let you have it. Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you ask me for critique, I'll give it to you. But it's going to be honest. It's not going to be rude, but you may take it not so softly. Because we speak very real as comedians. We can't help it.
I know. And see, that's the thing, too, is with your background and everything and having to be told at a young age is, oh, I was typecasted and this is all that you'll ever be and stuff. Do you ever feel like, dear God, I can't believe I just gave that advice out? Like, I might need to tone it down. That might have been a little bit more past Chino bitterness than good constructive.
It happened in the past. In the past, when I was a little bit younger and I was a little bit more cocky and like a little more like, oh, I'm gonna get my Comedy Central special soon. Until that reality sunk in. I try to give advice based on technique and not on material. I never wish to help change the material of a comedian because that's not my place. Comedy is funny from the comedian because it comes from their heart. That genuine delivery of material is 99% of why what they say is funny. Observational jokes can be stolen, but personal jokes, nobody can rewrite those. Nobody can tell those jokes like you. So the only advice I give is like trim the fat. You're talking too much about setup and you're not giving enough to the punchline. Know your punchlines so that when you get to it, you know how to punch it and pause for audience reaction. You have to give them space to laugh. It's like a fire. You need oxygen to light a fire. If you don't, it gets snuffed out immediately. You got to let that fire build and let the audience breathe with your jokes. And it's really hard to do because it feels like minutes of silence when it's just milliseconds. So it's kind of just a matter of holding your space, taking your time, breathing, and that's most of the notes I give for new comedians. 90% of it.
People don't understand that when you are on stage, and you can probably attest to this, time does seem to slow.
Yes. Stage time.
Yeah, stage time, 2 minutes.
1/3 the normal time of real time.
It is.
It's intense.
I mean, people don't know that in 15 seconds you will go from calm to shaking, quivering, sweating bowl of Jello.
Oh man, on a tough set, I burned through 10 minutes of jokes in 2.5 minutes. And went, where was the laughs? Oh, that's right, I didn't give him a chance. Now I got to improv the rest of my set.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
it definitely gets a little hairy with that. So it's kind of just a matter of breathing and especially bombing. A lot of people feel the need to speed up when they're bombing, and the real technique: stop, take a breath, address that you just bombed, now move on. Because that's honestly the best way you can get out of a bomb is to be like, all right, that didn't work.
Wow.
Questions, comments, critiques, good talk, and then just move on.
Yeah. I really wish that this was a longer show because we're coming up on the end of the show. Can you believe it? We've already had our hour together.
It's been a full hour?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, we can talk, man.
I would imagine that somebody in your position, if you cannot talk for this long, you shouldn't be in your position.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, well, while we're here at the end of the show, though, going forward in your career, where do you see you finally saying this is good enough?
Good enough for what? For me to stop?
Yeah.
Never. This is what I do, man. It's everything that makes me who I am. I mean, it gives me my light. If without this, I feel like I'd be kind of nothing. I mean, I haven't not performed in about 7 years. I have not missed an entire week. I have not gone an entire week without being on stage for 7 years.
Wow.
And I couldn't imagine it ever. I love it. I do it sheerly out of my just personal childlike joy. I love it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, the next time that somebody wants to catch your childlike joy, I guess they can look for
Tuesday nights, 9:00 at Three's Bar and Grill in Kihei. It's free. Happy hour prices on sushi and drinks.
Oh, God. Well, thank you once again for coming in.
Thank you, Shaggy. Thanks for having me, brother. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, definitely. All right. Well, for everybody else, we got to go and say goodbye for the show for the day. Oh. Okay, well, tomorrow on the show, though, we're going to have a really special guest that I kind of screwed up and was supposed to have on an earlier show.
Oh, no.
Terry Edmonds will be joining us tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Yay! And then, of course, we'll have our big weekend break and then come back with more. Remember, if you missed the full interview with Chino LaForge, catch it tonight on the replay at 11 o'clock.
I know, I'm recording it.
Set your DVRs for it, okay? Got to say a big thank you to Kristen, who's been running the board. She's out there today if you want to wave at her. And for, well, everybody involved here at the show. All right? Have a safe evening. Come back and join us again tomorrow when we go